When temperatures plunged below -40 and Soviet artillery thundered through Finland's frozen forests in the winter of 1939, most armies would have simply frozen out of existence. Metal seized. Oil turned to sludge. Soldiers' breath froze in midair. But one small army refused to die. The Finnish soldiers didn't just survive, they adapted. They turned their forests into laboratories and their supplies into chemistry experiments born of desperation. In the Winter War, Finland faced an enemy 10 times its size. The Soviets had tanks, aircraft, and endless resources. Finland had cold, snow, and knowledge, the kind that comes from generations of living close to nature. No fancy equipment, no supply lines stretching across continents, only the raw elements of the northern wilderness, trees, animals, ash, and fire. From those, they built their survival kits, and among their greatest allies were tree sap and reindeer fat, two humble materials that became the backbone of field survival chemistry. Every Finnish soldier knew that pine and spruce weren't just trees, they were supply depots. From their trunks oozed resin, thick and golden. Even in the dead of winter it stayed sticky, pliable enough to work with. Melted gently over a campfire, it became more than just glue. It sealed cracks in rifle stocks. It waterproofed boots. It patched canvas tents and gear bags ripped by the frost. Mix it with a bit of charcoal dust or ash, and the resin hardened into a durable sealant, strong enough to mend cooking tins or protect a knife blade from rust. What looked like primitive bushcraft was, in truth, chemical engineering. The resin's natural compounds, like abiotic acid, created a waterproof antibacterial barrier. The same chemistry that healed a wounded tree could heal a wounded man. When medical kits ran empty, soldiers turned to pine sap for survival medicine. They would heat it until it liquefied, then drip it carefully onto cuts and frost-cracked skin. When it cooled, it hardened into a translucent bandage, sealing out bacteria and moisture alike. This wasn't romantic wilderness lore. It was necessity turned into applied science. The pine's chemistry offered protection nature had already perfected over millions of years. And that same chemistry could still save lives today. If you ever needed to recreate this in the field, you could. Here's how the Finnish soldiers did it. They gathered resin from old pine wounds, never cutting fresh bark, only collecting hardened drops. Then, they melted it slowly until it softened and mixed it with equal parts animal fat or wax. When it cooled, it became a universal sealant, polish, fire starter, and wound dressing in one. It's simple chemistry, resin polymers bonding with fat molecules, forming a hydrophobic, flexible material. Exactly the same mixture that kept rifles firing and skin intact through months in the Arctic cold. But sap alone couldn't keep soldiers alive. For that, they turned to something even more primal: reindeer fat. Reindeer weren't just beasts of burden, they were lifelines. From their hides came warmth, and from their fat came fire. Soldiers rendered the fat into tallow, slow melting, energy-dense, and immune to freezing. In the field, a single tablespoon of this fat could outlast an entire loaf of bread. It burned steadily, releasing heat through metabolism far slower than sugar or grain. That slow burn kept men alive through nights where frost killed the unprepared within hours. Reindeer fat also became a form of armor. Rubbed onto skin, it formed a protective layer against the wind. Applied to leather or metal, it repelled moisture and frost. Soldiers mixed the fat with bits of sap or beeswax, creating a flexible, oily paste that could ignite even damp kindling. When spread on boots, it kept soles from freezing. When smeared on metal, it stopped frostbite burns, that deadly moment when skin fuses to frozen steel. It was field chemistry in its purest form. Simple, natural, and ingenious. Perhaps the greatest discovery came when they combined sap and fat together. Melted in a rough ratio, 1 part sap to 2 parts fat, the mixture cooled into a flexible wax. Soldiers called it forest wax. It waterproofed canvas, sealed food, and preserved meat for days in sub-zero temperatures. Spread thinly over dried bread, it formed an oxygen barrier, delaying decay like a primitive plastic wrap. On tools, it created a soft coating that kept bare hands from freezing to steel. Decades before synthetic polymers or paraffin compounds, Finnish soldiers had already invented a biodegradable, multi-purpose coating, using nothing more than chemistry learned from nature. Why did it all work so well? Because these men understood the chemistry of their land. Resin hardened with cold, but softened again with heat. A natural thermoplastic. Fat stored dense energy and bonded with sap molecules to form emulsions that resisted both water and bacteria. Ash, when mixed in, neutralized acids, speeding up curing. Each reaction was simple, yet perfectly adapted to Arctic warfare. It was science born from survival. Today, we rely on imported gear, synthetic fabrics, bottled lubricants, sealed antiseptics. But the Finnish soldiers proved you can build resilience from what's around you. Their chemistry was renewable, biodegradable, and endlessly adaptable. It reminds us that innovation doesn't begin in factories. It begins in observation, in knowing how your environment works and how to cooperate with it. Modern bushcrafters and explorers still use these same principles. Rendered fat as a fire starter, pine resin as salve and sealant, proof that wartime knowledge can still sustain peacetime life. When Finnish soldiers ran out of supplies, they didn't panic. They turned to what they knew, the chemistry of forests, of trees that heal themselves, and animals that survive where nothing else can. A handful of sap, a tin of fat, a spark of understanding. That was enough to withstand an empire. Because survival isn't just endurance, it's intelligence, written in the language of nature itself. If you value stories where science, survival, and human determination meet, subscribe to Forgotten Survival. Every like and comment keeps history's forgotten innovations alive.